Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for having me here. I've written some notes because I thought it was enough torture for all of you on Monday morning to listening to my English. So if it should be a improvised English, it would be too much. So again, I feel really honored to be here with all of you. I'm grateful for the gift that represents for me, and for the opportunity of sharing some thoughts regarding the topic of how to build a better world. And I organized my ideas in 3 different topics. The first one is to give a look at the world we are trying to improve. The second one will be discussing the role of impact the revolution. And the third one will focus on our personal response to the challenges we are facing. So let me start pointing out that we all know that mankind has been experiencing unprecedented progress since the Industrial Revolution and the emergence of a market-driven economy. Just to remember a few of those well-known facts, we can mention that in the past 2 centuries, average life expectancy across the world has increased to around 70 years from its long historical average of 30 years or less. From a world of almost complete illiteracy, we have transformed it into one in which more than 80% of adults can read. And just 200 years ago, around 85% of world population lived in extreme poverty, while that number today is around 16%. It's not my objective to get you bored with more figures that are available from many sources, but I find it appropriate to start recognizing the evolutionary process in which we are all involved. In the middle of today's protests, increasing uncertainty, resurgence of fears that bring back renewed threats of nationalisms and fundamentalisms, it's critical to look at the historical process with a perspective. Now, despite all these tremendous achievements, I would like to point out 3 major challenges that are still pending. First, as Ronald mentioned, inequality between rich and poor that leave an unacceptable large number of humans below a standard of human dignity. Second, the continuous growth and accumulation process is threatening, for the first time ever, the sustainability of life on our planet. We are living what's called the Anthropocene, which means that the future of Gaia and all the other living beings on it will depend on our response. The future of life is our responsibility. We all know the most urgent call is climate change. Last scientific reports are clearly showing that we are reacting in a way that may be too shy and too late. Third challenge, in my view, is that beyond a certain basic level of economic and social welfare, there is no clear correlation between accumulation and happiness. That could be understood as if the anthropological model behind the modern world requires a deep renewal. 2 sad facts illustrate this. First, mental disorders in general, and depression in particular, are among the illnesses that are growing more rapidly today in the whole world. Second, the number of suicides keeps increasing, and in the last few years, there have been more deaths from suicide than victims of war and urban crime together. So, the 3 main challenges I will be referring to are achieving a standard of human dignity for all, the sustainability of life, and the pursuit of happiness. Allow me now a short digression. There are some countries in which ideological approaches, extremely critical to those pending issues of market economies, have produced economic systems that could be called crony capitalism. In the crony capitalism, none of the problems mentioned above were solved, and additionally, the virtues of market economies were broken. In particular, the correlation between economic success and the creation of value for society was broken. Thus, it's not the entrepreneurs who add value through innovation, higher productivity, or better value propositions for the society who are the winners of the game, but corrupted politicians, corrupted businessmen, union leaders, judges, and others. Those who are unable to compete in the marketplace by creating genuine value, they have thrived by using the power of government for their own enrichment. Crony capitalists and some governments have become locked in an unholy embrace, elevating the narrow, self-serving interests of the few over the well-being of the many. They use the coercive power of government to secure advantages not enjoyed by others: tax reductions, subsidies, regulations that favor them but hinder competitors, laws that prevent market entry, and government-sanctioned cartels. Crony capitalism is intrinsically unethical and had serious consequences on our freedom, our well-being, and our culture, generating the loss of meritocracy in other fields of human behavior. Why should we study seriously? Why should we work hard if merit and success are no longer associated? In countries like Argentina, the prevailing system for many decades has had, unfortunately, strong similarities to this. To finish this picture in the first topic, we'll note that we are living in a global, integrated milieu as we never had before, in which the pace not only of scientific and technological progress, but social and cultural changes as well, looks more and more accelerated. Everything happens more quickly, and we all share all events in real time. So in order to address these three challenges I was mentioning, I would like to go to the second topic, which is the potential role of impact revolution. I see the impact revolution as a key element of a broader movement that includes many green initiatives, the triple bottom line, conscious capitalism, the B system, and the new trend of big corporations that are changing their strategy for a higher purpose. All these are expressions of a movement that has been gaining momentum in the last decade to become an unstoppable trend that has the mission to transform the global economic system toward a more conscious one. As Ronald Cohen reminds us, a system in which we are more conscious of the impact of our actions. To be conscious means to be fully aware and mindful, to see more clearly, to more fully understand the consequences of what we do. Impact investments opens the door to private sector innovation, channeling its talent and capital to find better solutions to society's challenges. With all the restrictions that governments face around the globe, the contribution of impact investment will become more and more crucial. Having personally been on both sides of the table, as an entrepreneur and investor on the one side, and as a minister in Macri's administration on the other side, it is for me very clear that collaboration of government, investors, philanthropists, entrepreneurs, big corporations, social organizations, and the whole society is critical in dealing with these challenges. It's also important to point out that the transformation of the global economic system to a more fair and sustainable one will be key to address the increasing social unrest, and in these latitudes, to overcome the false promises of populism always associated to crony capitalism. Ronald has just proposed us a full agenda for every group and for every one of us. And I want to publicly express my full support to that agenda. And if you allow me to end this second part of my reflections, I would like to add 3 principles that, in my view, this transformation movement should follow. The first principle is dream big. Dream big, because what we are talking here is nothing less than taking our societies to a new stage of evolution. But second, execute with excellence the day-to-day details. If we fail to incarnate our dreams with total dedication to our daily tasks, we will not succeed in our mission, achieve highest impact for our societies, achieve highest returns for our investors, push innovation, push creativity, search for excellence in every action. And last but not least, I think we should do it with the loving attitude of a mother. When we see with pain the flaws of our current system, many may be tempted to fight against those. And this fighting against brings us an energy closer to the hate to the old paradigm than to the love to the new one. If we want to bring a new consciousness to the economic system, we should try to see with the mother eyes when educating her children. And let me address now my final topic. What should our personal response be towards these challenges? And I will start quoting the great Swiss psychologist Carl Gustav Jung. He asked himself, what is it, then, that inexorably tips the scale in favor of the extraordinary? What is it, then, that inexorably tips the scale in favor of the extraordinary? And he answers, it is what is commonly called vocation, an irrational factor that destines a person to emancipate herself from the herd and from its well-worn path. According to Jung, and I fully agree with him, ultimately, everything will depend on our personal response to those challenges. Maybe the key to overcome those 3 challenges, achieving human dignity for all, the sustainability of life, and the pursuit of happiness, will depend on our capacity to fully live our vocation, to serve the world, and to do it with great passion and generosity. Now, this response may need a process of awakening to a new consciousness. Maybe in order to fully live our vocation, what we deeply need is to awake to a consciousness that leaves behind the idea that each of us is an individual, totally independent and separated from nature and from each other. This does not imply resigning the minimum piece of our personal freedom, which is a sacred that mankind has been longing for millennials, and we have to honor it. But totally convinced that suffering comes mostly from the idea of separation. This feeling that in an extreme condemns us to solipsism. From the existential loneliness, I start to compete for scarce goods, I become greedy, I treat nature and I treat others as objects of domination. But when we remember we are interdependent, that we are essentially linked and connected to life, to others, and to the cosmos, our tensions, our anxieties, our attachments, our greed start to fade away. When we recognize ourselves as part of the whole, when we go from the I to the we, and to the we to the whole, we get liberated from fear and fragmentation. Maybe what we need is a new myth, a new narrative that reconnects us all with the meaning, with our own depth, with each other, and with nature. This new narrative should also include a more feminine leadership and understanding. In words of Raymond Panikkar, a more feminine approach to life, open to the voice of the spirit who inspires dreams and sacred stories and makes humans recognize the sacredness of nature. Good news is this shift in consciousness is happening. Perhaps the greatest change that we humans are experiencing is our rising consciousness. We are gaining awareness of our common inner self, our external reality, and the impacts we have on the world. The youngsters, the new generations, are increasingly leading the way. And this is the phenomenon that makes me hopeful that mankind will be able to deal with these impressive challenges. We have a very powerful ally that resides deep in the heart of every human being. It is in our thirst for happiness. It is in our search for meaning. It is in our capacity to listen to our inner voice, where we will find the energy, the creativity, and our full potential to work for a better world. Let me finish with a poem by Donna Markova. I'd like to take it as a call to action from the deepest heart. And it says, I will not die an unlived life. I will not live in fear of falling or catching fire. I choose to inhabit my days, to allow my living to open me, to make me less afraid, more accessible, to loosen my heart until it becomes a wing, a torch, a promise. I choose to risk my significance, to live so that which came to me as seed goes to the next as blossom, and that which came to me as blossom goes on as fruit. Thank you very much.